Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Last month, my mom got a new job in a different town, which meant new house, new neighborhood, and yeah, new school. I was nervous on my first day, but I tried to keep a positive attitude. From day one, I became the primary target for jokes and pranks. Most kids would just make comments about my clothes or accent, which I could handle. But there was this one guy who took bullying to a whole new level. This guy was tall with a permanent smirk on his face. He quickly established himself as my personal tormentor. Every day was the same routine. He'd wait until lunch, sneak over to where we stored our lunch boxes, and steal my food. I go hungry most days, too embarrassed to tell anyone. He'd corner me after class. He would demand to know if I had completed his homework yet. When I explained that I hadn't done it because I was busy with my own assignments, he would threaten me. He would warn me in a menacing tone that I needed to complete his math and science homework by the next day, or he would make sure I regretted coming to this school. These weren't empty threats. One time, when I refused, he pushed me against the locker so hard I had a bruise for days. And the rumors he spread, he told everyone I was expelled from my last school for stealing, that I had lice, that my family was homeless. Kids started avoiding me like I had some contagious disease. After 3 weeks of this torture, I finally broke down and told my mom everything. I expected her to call the school, or maybe even consider transferring me again. Instead, she got this determined look in her eyes. She said no one treats her child like that, and that she had an idea. The next evening I watched as my mom went shopping and returned with a small container. She explained that it contained Carolina Reaper powder, one of the hottest peppers in the world. She dumped the entire container into a bag of frozen French fries, sealed it, and shook it vigorously. Then she heated them up, let them cool, and carefully placed them back in the bag. As if that wasn't enough, she dipped some gummy bears into the remaining powder. She instructed me to pack these items for lunch the next day and make sure they were visible. I was nervous but also excited. The next day I followed our usual routine. I put my lunchbox on the designated table in the pavilion and headed to the library, where I normally spent time before lunch period. But this time I had a plan. My friend, the only one I'd managed to make, agreed to help. He sat on a bench near the lunch table and had his phone ready to record. I waited anxiously in the library, pretending to read but actually watching the clock. Suddenly, I heard an agonizing scream echo through the hallway. I rushed out of the library to see my tormentor on his knees, face bright red, mouth open in a silent scream. My lunchbox was open beside him, and I could see the half-eaten gummy bears. My friend was there, phone in hand, recording everything, until the bully noticed. Despite his distress, he managed to grab my friend's phone and smash it on the ground. School staff came running. The bully was having trouble breathing. Apparently, he had asthma that was triggered by the intense spice. An ambulance arrived within 10 minutes, and he was taken away on a stretcher. The next day, I was called to the administration office. When I arrived, I saw a woman with the same smirk as the bully, screaming at our principal. She was angrily demanding to know what they had done to her son. The administrator apologetically explained that her son had eaten another student's lunch. The woman vehemently denied this possibility, shouting that her son would never do such a thing. The administrator clarified that her son had eaten someone's French fries and gummy bears, which triggered his asthma attack. The woman became even more upset, asking why anyone would do that to her angel. The administrator reiterated that her son was in the wrong for taking someone else's lunch. The woman stormed out, giving me a glare that could have melted steel. 2 weeks later, as I was walking to my bus after school, someone grabbed me by the shoulder and spun me around. It was the bully's mother. Before I could react, she punched me right in the face. She accused me of poisoning her son, calling me a little brat. A teacher witnessed the whole thing and immediately intervened. My mom was called, and she arrived like a hurricane. After learning what happened, she didn't hesitate to press charges against both the mother for assault on a minor and the son for theft and bullying. My friend also joined in, charging the mother for destroying his phone. The phone wasn't expensive, but it contained irreplaceable photos of his mother, who had passed away the previous year. The case didn't even make it to court. The evidence was overwhelming. The mother was fined $500 for assault and had to pay my friend $2,000 for the destroyed phone and lost photos. The bully never returned to our school. I heard his family moved to avoid the embarrassment. And for me, things got better. Once the other kids heard what happened, they started treating me with a new kind of respect. I'm good with that. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads after Dad left when I was 7. Despite our financial struggles, gaming became my escape. I saved every penny from odd jobs around the neighborhood to build my collection over the years. Those games weren't just plastic discs to me, they were portals to worlds where I could be a hero, where I had control, where my anxiety and depression couldn't follow. Speaking of which, I've dealt with severe anxiety and depression since I was 14. Therapy helps, but some days are harder than others. My little Australian cattle dog puppy has been a lifesaver. Literally. She's only 40 pounds but thinks she's a lion when it comes to protecting me. We got her as an emotional support animal, and she's been the best medicine I could ask for. So when my mom told me that her sister, my aunt from up north, was coming to visit with her 12-year-old son, I was already dreading it. I'd met the kid once before at a family reunion, and he was the definition of entitled. Still, I promised my mom I'd be on my best behavior. She rarely got to see her sister, and I didn't want to ruin it for her. The day they arrived, I was sitting on the porch with my dog when their car pulled into our driveway. Before the engine even stopped, I could hear my cousin through the rolled-down window. He was loudly announcing his hope that I would give him one of my video games, mentioning that his mom had told him I had tons of them. I felt my stomach knot up immediately. My games were my prized possessions. I'd never just give one away, especially not to someone who wouldn't appreciate their value to me. My aunt got out of the car first, approaching me with a wave. She greeted me enthusiastically, commenting on how much I'd grown since she last saw me. Before I could even respond, my cousin had bolted past both of us and into the house. My dog perked up, sensing my sudden anxiety. My mom came out to greet my aunt, and I excused myself to check on my cousin. When I approached my bedroom, I heard the unmistakable sound of game cases being rummaged through. I pushed open my door to find him on his knees in front of my meticulously organized collection, cases strewn across the floor. The sight triggered an immediate panic response. My safe space was being invaded, my precious possessions manhandled by someone who had no respect for their importance to me. I shouted at him to get out of my room and to stop touching my things. My voice came out louder than I intended, but the anxiety flooding my system was overwhelming. My cousin looked up startled, then narrowed his eyes. He defiantly told me that I couldn't tell him what to do and claimed his mom had said I needed to share with him. I responded that I didn't have to share anything, that these were mine, and asked him again to leave my room. He stomped out, but not before deliberately knocking over a stack of games on his way. I quickly gathered them, hands shaking slightly as I checked each case for damage. Not even 5 minutes later, my aunt appeared angry in my doorway. She immediately started berating me, demanding to know how I dared to treat her son that way. I tried to respond, but she cut me off. She accused me of being trouble, claiming her poor baby had told her everything, specifically that I had beaten him up just because he wanted to look at my silly games. She then threatened to call the police. I stood there completely bewildered. My dog must have sensed my distress because she came bounding into the room, positioning herself protectively in front of me and letting out a low growl. My aunt reacted dramatically to my dog, screaming for me to control her and claiming the dog was going to attack her. In my mind, I was thinking, oh my god, why do I exist? But I tried to stay calm. I explained that my dog wasn't threatening her but was just being protective. I also questioned her accusation about me beating up her son. My aunt continued yelling, insisting her child was covered in bruises and had a bloody nose from my assault. My mom, hearing the commotion, appeared behind my aunt. She asked what my aunt was talking about, pointing out that she had just seen my cousin in the kitchen raiding our refrigerator, and he was completely fine. My aunt threatened again to call the police. My mom told her to go ahead, mentioning that our security camera covered the front door and hallway, which would show what really happened. This made my aunt hesitate, but only briefly. She pulled out her phone and dramatically dialed 911, all while giving me death glares. 20 minutes later, two police officers arrived at our door. My aunt immediately launched into her performance, accusing me of beating up her son and claiming my dog had bitten him. She demanded that both my dog and I be put down, even suggesting I had rabies. The taller police officer looked unimpressed and asked to see my cousin. My cousin was brought in from the living room looking completely unharmed and actually a bit embarrassed by his mother's behavior. The officer asked him directly if I had hurt him or if my dog had bitten him. My cousin looked down at his shoes and admitted that neither of those things had happened. When asked why his mother had claimed he was beaten up, he simply said he just wanted to play my games, and I had yelled at him. The police officer turned to my aunt, who was now getting furious. He warned her that filing a false police report was a serious offense. My mom stepped forward and quietly told the officers that she wanted her sister and nephew to leave our property, stating they were no longer welcome here. When the officer asked if we would like them to escort my aunt and cousin off the premises, my mom and I both nodded in agreement. My aunt was fuming as she gathered their belongings, muttering about ungrateful family and how we'd regret this. My cousin looked torn between embarrassment and wanting to maintain his mother's approval. As they were being escorted to their car, my aunt turned for one last parting shot, cruelly suggesting that my father was right to leave us because we were impossible to love. My mom, who never loses her cool, simply smiled and responded that we were living our best lives without toxic people, bidding her sister goodbye. We haven't seen or heard from my aunt since that day, and my mom blocked her number and social media accounts. Fair enough, I'd say. I was diagnosed with autism as a kid, though it was later classified as Asperger's. My symptoms were mild enough that I was able to attend regular classes at school. I'm what they call a visual learner. I struggle with textbooks but excel with hands-on experience and visual demonstrations. I can learn through traditional methods, but it takes more effort. When I turned 16, getting my driver's license became a huge deal. My single mom was thrilled when she found out the school offered driver's education. She couldn't afford private lessons, so this was our chance. Her excitement motivated me to work extra hard. I wanted to make her proud and gain some independence. Every night after finishing homework, I'd study the driver's handbook. Mom made flashcards for road signs and rules, quizzing me until I could recite everything perfectly. I was nervous but prepared for the written test, which was the first step before getting behind the wheel. That's when everything went downhill. The driver's education teacher was a middle-aged guy who clearly had issues with students who had any kind of learning difference. During the eye exam portion of the test, he made remarks that still make my blood boil when I think about them. The driver's ed teacher told me that people like me shouldn't be allowed to drive because we don't have the attention span for it. When I tried to defend myself by saying I had studied hard, he dismissively said that studying couldn't fix what was wrong with me and that I would never be safe on the road. His comments got worse as the course continued. Every time I made a mistake, he'd make some snide remark about my condition. My confidence crumbled, and I started making more errors from pure anxiety. Eventually, I failed the course. My mom was disappointed, not understanding why I'd failed after all our preparation. I couldn't bring myself to tell her what the teacher had said. She worked so hard, and I didn't want to add to her stress. Instead, I enrolled in a computer course the next quarter. It was a relief to discover I had a natural talent for technology. We learned Microsoft Office programs, making presentations in PowerPoint, creating professional documents in Word, and building spreadsheets in Excel. During that class, I made a good friend who shared my interest in gaming. We'd hang out during free periods and play Halo and RuneScape at home. When the quarter ended, we received personalized letters from our teachers evaluating our performance. I got a positive one from my computer teacher and unexpectedly, another from the driver's ed teacher. I thought it would just confirm my failure, but it was much worse. He wrote that I was unfit to drive due to my disability and that he was sending a recommendation to the Department of Motor Vehicles to prevent me from ever getting a license. I was devastated. My friend noticed I wasn't playing as well in our games and wasn't logging in as often. He messaged me asking what was wrong, and I finally shared what happened. My friend called the teacher a jerk and suggested we should get back at him. When I expressed concern about getting in trouble because he was a teacher, my friend pointed out that the teacher had given us everything we needed in that letter, his stationery format and his signature. He suggested we could use those things to our advantage. Though hesitant at first, I agreed. My friend and I carefully crafted a letter using the same format as the teacher's stationery. I scanned his signature from my letter and placed it at the bottom of our fake document. The letter was an apology from the driver's ed teacher to a delivery truck driver, claiming that a student had damaged the truck during a driving lesson. On Monday, we put our plan into action. We knew the food delivery truck came to the school cafeteria weekly during second period. My friend had a class overlooking the loading docks and could see the driver's education course set up nearby. We waited until both the delivery driver and the teacher were away, then quickly taped our folded letter to the truck's door where the driver would definitely see it. I couldn't witness what happened next, but my friend had a perfect view from his classroom window. The truck driver found the note and read our fake apology about a student damaging his truck. The driver became furious. He grabbed a baseball bat from his truck and walked over to the driver's education car. My friend described how the driver's ed teacher returned to find an enraged truck driver and a completely shattered windshield on the car he used to teach students. Some might say the windshield damage was excessive, but I disagree. This teacher tried to limit my future and damage my self-esteem over something I couldn't control. Despite his recommendation, I was able to get my driver's license anyway. It turns out the DMV doesn't actually put much stock in the opinions of high school driver's ed teachers. I passed my test on the first try, and the look on my mom's face when I showed her my license was worth everything we'd been through. This all happened about 18 years ago when I was working at Village Inn. I'd started there right after high school and stayed for 5 years, becoming one of the most experienced servers. I always worked the morning shift because that's when we made the most money. Back then, smoking was still allowed in restaurants, so we had designated smoking and non-smoking sections. Even after the restaurant eventually went completely non-smoking, the seating chart stayed the same. Sundays were special. We get the massive church crowd that would pack the place for hours. Management declared Sundays completely non-smoking until 3 p.m. to accommodate all the families. On weekends, we typically had about 8 servers working. The 2 servers would cover the smoking section, which had 10 tables total, while the other 6 servers worked the non-smoking area with about 4 tables each. If you worked the smoking section, you had way more tables to manage, but you also had the potential to make more in tips. Management knew I was efficient and fast, so they always put me in the smoking section on Sundays. I had a system down and could handle all 10 tables by myself. The Sunday church crowd was notoriously demanding, but they tipped well if you gave them good service. At the end of each shift, I'd always have the highest tip amount. The experienced servers understood why I was handling more than double their tables, but new servers would get resentful. One day, my manager pulled me aside and told me that some of the newer servers had been complaining. They thought the only reason I made more money was because I got what they considered the better section. I almost laughed since my section wasn't better, it was more work. The manager suggested we let them try my section as a form of malicious compliance. So when one complainant, a server I'll call entitled who'd been there about 3 months, started making comments about tip inequality, I offered to let her take my section the following Sunday. I warned her that I wouldn't be able to help if she got overwhelmed, but she confidently said she could handle it just fine. That Sunday, I happily took my small section of 4 tables and had a relatively stress-free morning. Meanwhile, I could see Entitled running around frantically. By noon, she was completely underwater. Forgotten drink refills, mixed up orders, long waits for checks. Several tables looked annoyed, trying to flag her down as she rushed past. Another server commented on how calm I seemed. I explained it was because I only had 4 tables instead of 10. She mentioned that Entitled was about to cry and that one table had been waiting for their check for 15 minutes. I simply responded that Entitled had wanted my section, so this was the consequence. By the end of the shift, Entitled looked exhausted. When we counted tips, I'd still made more money than most servers, despite having fewer tables. Quality service beats quantity every time. Entitled expressed confusion about why she had made less money than the previous week despite having more tables. I explained that the church crowd had specific expectations, and if they had to wait, they showed their dissatisfaction through their tips. She protested that she couldn't have moved any faster, and I pointed out that success wasn't just about speed, but about systems and understanding your customers. The next day, Entitled told me I could have my section back. When I asked if she was sure, she admitted it wasn't worth it because she'd made less money while working 3 times as hard. This scenario played out many times during my 5 years there. New servers would complain, try my section, crash and burn, and never question my tips again. Every time we got a new complaint, I'd just smile and offer to let them take my section, saying I could use a break. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.